Peppa Pig was, like any pig, a creature of habit. A sunny day meant a game of jump in muddy puddles, and if it was cloudy, well, that meant the perfect time for a nap. But one particular morning things were different. Peppa received a strange letter. It was from someone named Mr. Rook. It was simple yet chilling. Peppa, if you seek the truth, come to Whispering Woods. Don't be afraid to play, but be careful who you trust. Yours truly, Mr. Rook. Now, most pigs would have thrown a letter like that straight into the trash, but not Peppa. She was curious, and that curiosity would soon lead her and George to a nightmare none of them would see coming. Peppa had always loved adventure and mystery, but as she made her way to Whispering Woods, a creeping unease settled over her. It wasn't the kind of place where you'd see a cheerful squirrel, or even the usual birds chirping. No, this place had the feeling of an evil, haunted forest. As she walked, George clutched his toy dinosaur, hoping to gain comfort from it. "Peppa," George whispered, "I don't like this. The trees. They're too big and they're making weird noises." Peppa, trying to reassure her little brother, replied, "Don't be silly, George. The trees are just stretching, I guess. Or maybe it's just the wind." As they reached the heart of the woods, they came across the playground. And there it was, the cursed playground. Unlike any other playground Peppa had seen, it stood out with its odd design. A carousel that seemed to turn by itself, swings that swayed in the wind even though there was no wind at all, and a slide that, well, the slide had a faint, musty smell, like it hadn't been cleaned in years. A voice suddenly came from behind them. "Ah, I see you've found it." Peppa spun around, almost dropping her hat. "Who's there?" A tall figure emerged from the shadows, wearing a long, tattered coat and an oversized top hat that nearly covered his face. The man gave a slight bow. "I'm Mr. Rook," he said with a weird smile, "and welcome to the playground. But I must warn you, the swings, they're quite selective." Peppa blinked. "What do you mean, selective?" Mr. Rook chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with a strange gleam. "You'll see, but first, let's play." Before Peppa could protest, he had already taken a seat on one of the swings. Without even touching it, the swing began to move. The wind picked up, the trees swayed back and forth, and then the playground seemed to come to life. The carousel spun faster and faster, and the slide let out a strange grinding of metal noise. Peppa, despite herself, couldn't help but feel intrigued. She walked closer to the swings, ready to jump on one herself. But then, as she reached for the seat, something strange happened. The swing jerked backwards with incredible force, sending Peppa sprawling to the ground. "Peppa, are you okay?" George shouted, his toy dinosaur forgotten. Peppa laughed nervously. "I'm fine, George, just testing the swing's stability." But as she dusted herself off, a horrifying thought crossed her mind. What if the swing wasn't meant for her? Peppa was about to ask Mr. Rook for an explanation when she noticed something truly bizarre. The swings were no longer swaying in the wind. No, they were swinging by themselves. And not just any swings. The swing on the far left had something on it. It looked like a pig, but it wasn't Peppa. Mr. Rook, is that—" Peppa trailed off, her voice trembling. Mr. Rook turned and smiled. "Ah, yes. That swing, it does have a history. You see, the playground doesn't just play with anyone. It picks its players. And now, it's your turn, Peppa." Peppa took a step back, heart pounding. "Wait, my turn for what?" Mr. Rook's smile faded, replaced by something far more sinister. "You'll find out soon enough." As Peppa backed away, George suddenly shrieked, pointing at the slide. There, emerging from the slide's mouth, was a pale, ghostly version of Peppa herself. It was a twisted, distorted figure with hollow eyes and an evil grin that stretched far too wide. "Peppa, help!" George cried, trembling in fear. The ghostly Peppa giggled. Her voice sounded like nails scraping across a chalkboard. "Peppa, Peppa, come play with me." Peppa's heartbeat raced with fear. The playground had a mind of its own, and it wanted something from her, something dark, something she wasn't sure she could give. Suddenly, Mr. Rook stepped forward, his eyes locking onto Peppa's. "It's time to play, Peppa. You see, this playground isn't just for fun. It chooses who stays and who leaves. In a flash, everything around Peppa Pig seemed to warp. Trees contorted into unnatural shapes. The slide seemed to stretch into infinity, and the swings began to creak louder and louder. Peppa looked at Mr. Rook, her mind spinning. "What is this place?" she screamed. "Don't you get it?" Mr. Rook sneered, his voice dripping with menace. "This is no ordinary playground. It's a place where lost souls come to play their final game. And you, Peppa Pig, are the newest player in a very special game." Peppa's stomach churned. The ground split open in front of her, revealing a pit of darkness below. Something otherworldly was watching her from the depths of hell. Peppa ran. She didn't think, she didn't stop. She ran straight toward the edge of the woods, her heart pounding faster and faster in her chest. But as she ran, the trees started to shift, blocking her from leaving this horror. It was like the trees had minds of their own, keeping her from escaping. Then, just as she thought she was trapped, something unexpected happened. "Peppa!" George's voice cut through the chaos. "The carousel, it's stopping. You can make it." Peppa turned and saw the once violent carousel slowing to a halt, its eerie music fading into silence. She ran toward it, using the last of her strength. But just as she reached the carousel, Mr. Rook appeared in front of her, his face twisted in rage. "You can't escape," he growled. But before Peppa could react, the ground shook violently, and then a giant hand shot out of the earth, grabbing Mr. Rook and pulling him down into the void below. Peppa stumbled back in shock. "What was that?" It was the playground, the cursed playground that had been using Mr. Rook to lure in unsuspecting children. But now that it had gotten what it wanted, it was done with him. Peppa and George stood there, breathless, as the woods began to calm. The playground's haunting presence faded, and the trees seemed to relax. Peppa, still in disbelief, whispered, We're free?" But then, as the sun began to set, she heard it. The swing, slowly, gently, creaking. And from the shadows, she could just make out a voice, barely a whisper. "You'll be back, Peppa. You always come back." Peppa and George ran home that day, but Peppa couldn't shake the feeling that the playground would always be there, waiting. A dark place. A place where games were played by a different set of rules. And somewhere, in the depths of Whispering Woods, Mr. Rook wasn't gone. Not really. And Peppa, she might just be the next one to be called back sooner than she thought. If you've been terrified by this Peppa Pig scary video, then join our horror community by subscribing.